Hi, I'm Karen Terry Brown, and welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain. Today, our lovely guest is Michele Gomez Lafal. Michele is the owner of Absolute Allied Health Academy. Michele, thank you so much for being on the show.
I thank you for having me.
Yes. So, Michele, I know your background is nursing. And so I'm just amazed at what you've done with your career. But before we get out into your career, I'm going to ask you to go back and tell us a little bit about the young Michele, where you grew up.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your humble beginnings.
Well, I'm born in Woodbine, I'm from Woodbine, New Jersey, but raised Compton, California. I would say childhood was, typical, but at some point my parents hit some challenges in their life. And I think that kind of set the tone of where I am today.
And before we go, if you use the words challenges or struggles, I'm going to ask you to elaborate.
Yeah.
So your early childhood was great.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the way, and about how old would you have been when your parents had some struggle?
I would say I was about 12, 13 years old. We had relocated to Compton, California. And I realize now as an adult that my parents obviously were struggling with these issues early on, but I think it wasn't so out in the open until we were further away from family, friends, and so forth. And when we arrived in Compton, I would say roughly about 6 months to a year later, it was wide open, out and open at what was going on with them. They truly suffered from substance abuse. My dad was unfortunately addicted to heroin, and my mother crack cocaine. We went from a life of stability in New Jersey to something that was really foreign to me and my two sisters. At that early age of 12 and 13, I was 12, 13. My middle sister was about 10, 11 or so. We had to start fending for ourselves. I remember going into high school, and they were nice, but we didn't have food to eat, So I was lucky enough. I had a really good basketball coach, Coach James Swain, who took me under his wing. And I managed to get a job across the street from the high school I went to. It was a fish market. And I would go in there Monday through Friday after basketball practice, and I would put 2 pieces of bread, the tartar sauce, the ketchup, the napkin, the fork in these baggies. And the company was paying me, I started off at like $50 a week, got up to $80. I really thought I was winning.
Yes.
And it literally helped pay my mom's Section 8 rent and still gave me enough spending money for me to, be able to cover my needs throughout the week. My middle sister, she ended up working for a pet store in Compton, California. Unfortunately, she dropped out of school. And but that was just our ways of a mean, so we just had to do what we had to do while we kind of just battled through my parents' addiction.
Sure.
I think it set the tone for the good and bad things that happen in all of our lives, But I mean, I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. And I don't harbor any ill will to my parents for it. I truly feel like that season in my life grounded me to where I am today.
So I'm gonna back up where you said, not wanting anybody to feel sorry for you or the ill will. I want to say where you said you thought maybe that might have been a struggle in New Jersey, and then in Compton it was magnified, and maybe because of what was going on during that time and that era where drugs were running rapid.
In what?
And more so, I'm going to say in our community.
Yes.
And we just didn't know what we didn't know.
We didn't
right?
know. Yeah.
And so your story was going to help someone else that felt like it was just them. Maybe it was something that they did, or even that parent that feels as though my child and I can never have a relationship again because of, my struggles. I have a brother that's mid-50s. and he has 6 children. And today is a good day for him.
Yeah.
But he's struggled since high school. And he wouldn't mind me telling his story because we talk about his story.
Yeah.
I talk to him all the time. But his thing was, his children would never forgive him. And I think, and every time that would be another reason he would go back. And he has a relationship, probably would have a good relationship with half his children, other children he's trying to have a relationship with, but still, I think these stories help people know it's okay.
It is.
It's okay not to hold that in.
Yeah.
Parents and the children both. So,
yeah.
No, I appreciate you sharing this.
And I think the fact that you touched on it, I think that's probably one of the biggest catalysts to why sometimes people fail in situations like that. As a child, I had a lot of resentment. It took me to have my own child to recognize God's grace and how I had to show favor and forgive. I realized how much I loved her when she was first born. And it gives me a little chills thinking about it. And I remember looking at Alexis when she was first born, and I was 21 years old when I had her. And my parents were still heavy in their addiction. But I remember having this sense of just how much I loved her. She wasn't even here 24 hours yet, just looking at her. And I knew in that moment, as much pain and hurt and even suffering, I would say, that me and my sisters had experienced, I knew that if I loved my baby like that in that little bit of time, I knew my parents loved me the same way. And I had to believe, and I had to start, and I wasn't a nurse then, I wasn't in the medical field, so I didn't understand the psychology or, the psychosocial or physiological measures of it. But I understood in that early age that if I loved her that much, my parents had to love me that much. And if they forgot about that in that time frame, it had everything to do with the addiction. Like, I don't think sometimes we take in consideration that addiction is a disease.
Yeah.
And it made me have a little bit more empathy, towards the situation with them. It allowed me to build a bridge more so with them. It didn't discount my feelings, but it allowed me to look at it on a different level and from a different side and view. Because I know they love me. I know they tried their best. I know that at one point, my mom was super mom and my dad was super dad, but at some point in their lives, this happened. But I also believe I'm a God-fearing woman. God doesn't make any mistakes. And he knew that was going to happen far before I did, you did, anyone else would have known. And maybe it was for me and my sisters to be in the position we are in now today, because I tell people all the time, if I can do it, anyone can do it, And I think sometimes we forget about it. So I'm a firm believer. Like I tell these students and the people that I try to mentor, we're walking testimonies. Don't be so shamed about telling people what you've been through, because your season may be a means for someone else's breakthrough. I don't get upset about the seasons. I invite them now, Karen, I really invite them, because if I'm not going through something, how will I evolve? And if I'm not going through something, I feel like God has forgotten about me, literally, So the only time I worry about a season is if I'm repeating the same seasons over and over again. That's not God. That's not the devil. That is me, So, but I would like the viewers to really take in consideration, especially those who are going through the same changes that me and my sisters went through with my parents having drug addiction, is understanding, love them still.
Yeah.
And don't expect everyone to do the things that you would, or be what you would be for them. Sometimes we have to meet people at their level. If all you operate is at a level D, I'll never expect E through Z from you. And my feelings could never get hurt, because I'll have just what I have. I'll get what I can get from you.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we hold people, or we expect people to provide us or be there for us in a manner that they're not capable, but because I'm willing to do it, I'm supposed to feel like you're expected to do it too. And that's where we sell ourselves short.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I put something on social media the other day that said, back in the day it used to be, I treat people just like I want to be treated. Well, no, you treat them the way they want to be treated.
Yeah.
Or your expectations up here for someone and they're right here.
Yes.
So meet people where they are.
Yes.
If you really truly want to help someone grow, meet them where they are.
Meet them. Yeah.
Power all of the blessings that have been bestowed on us, to help them get to that level if that's where they want to go. If that's not where they want to go, then it's okay too.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
You've done what you could do.
All we can. Yeah.
So I want to talk about Lexi. Is my son right? Your baby? What was she?
My firstborn.
Your firstborn. So I know that there's a story with your struggles when you first had her for you. Would you tell us about those?
So Alexis, they told me, okay, let me back it up a little. So I remember I was about 21, going on 22, and I got a phone call from the babysitter that they had to rush her to the hospital. And we get to the hospital, Long Beach Memorial Hospital in Long Beach, California, and I'm told that my daughter has a heart condition of some nature, okay? I was not in the medical field then. I didn't know anything about medical. And I was referred to a local cardiologist, seen him. At that point, she was evaluated. They performed echocardiogram, all of the basics, right? And I leave this office a couple weeks later after visiting him with a stethoscope and this bottle of medication that I had no clue about. And they told me I had to start checking her pulse rate daily. And depending on her pulse rate, I needed to give her this medicine. I didn't know anything about using a stethoscope. I didn't know anything about this medicine. My baby turned blue on me 4 or 5 different occasions during that ordeal. The last time, rushed her back to the ER. They referred us obviously back to the cardiologist. And unfortunately, I was going through many seasons at that time. I was dealing with a broken relationship, domestic violence, homeless half the time. I was a new mom. I didn't have any job. I was unemployed, trying to figure out my way. My parents were still in the world, didn't have a vehicle, catching the bus everywhere, on welfare, food stamps, TANF, you name it, trying to get on Section 8 at this point, And I remember going back to that doctor and he turned me away because what I didn't know was as I was trying to get all these things rearranged in my life and trying to check back to school and do all this, I mistakenly allowed my Medicaid to lapse. So I didn't have any health insurance. And he said that in order for us to be seen, I would have to pay $500. I barely had bus fare that day. And I remember sitting there and I just felt so broken, because, and all she has is me here, and take your time. So I packed our stuff up, went and got on the bus back from Long Beach to Compton, and I cried. I cried that whole bus ride home, and called a family member who was lived in New Jersey, really well off, on one of my aunts, and she paid for me and my daughter to go back to New Jersey to see a cardiologist. And I found out, now she probably could have given me, I'm sure she could have given me the money to see this doctor. I always, think about that, but I think she was probably just as upset over how the situation was handled. And she flew us back to New Jersey, ended up going to Cooper Medical and seeing a cardiologist there and found out my daughter never had a heart condition. And the medicine I had been giving her was causing these,
So she was misdiagnosed?
She was misdiagnosed, yes. And that's how I ended up in the medical field. I made a decision. I would never be placed in a situation where someone could tell me something about my kids or my own health or my family's health without me knowing how to ask the right questions or tell them how to do their job. That's where I am now. Because it's nothing worse than being in a society, in a world, in a community where you don't have no support. And then you have someone that's truly looking up to you, that depends on you, and then you can't do anything. I felt so weak. I felt worthless. I felt like a bad mother, when that happened. But that truly, Alexis is the reason why I am Nurse Gomez Lafal. Alexis was my driving force. She's my sun. She was my sunrise, my sunset, and if it hadn't been for that situation, I wouldn't even have even started down this pathway that I'm in now. So
at that point, when you found out that she didn't have the problem that she was diagnosed with, you were in New Jersey?
When I found out, we were in New Jersey, but we moved back. We came back to California.
So you came back to Compton?
Compton. Mm-hmm. Came right back to Compton. Yeah. Okay. Came right back to Compton. And went through trials and tribulations from that point still, because I didn't know about raising a child. I didn't know anything about being in a relationship. I didn't know what love was. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say I didn't experience true love until I met my husband of 20 years now, when I met him here in Texas. But I didn't have, I can honestly say, I don't think I had true examples of what that was. You know, I think we all can relate with this idea of when we're growing up, especially in our culture, if one of us is doing bad, we all do bad.
Yeah.
If one of us is doing good, we all need to do good together.
You know, a lot of times, what you said in our culture to me is that crab in the barrel mentality. You know, if you start to move up, somebody that is not as happy for you, they're going to tell you why you can't do it, why you shouldn't do it, and we fall right back in there. Mm-hmm. And then with the love thing, where you have both your parents at home, and still because you didn't have that example because they were struggling. Yeah. But my father's parents raised me, and relationships, I went through these relationships because no one taught me how a man was supposed to treat you. And hungry, I think, for me, trying to chase after that father figure. Yeah. I ended up with a bunch of loser figures.
Oh my gosh, I know that.
I know, as they said,
all too well. And you know, I think the other thing we need to kind of touch on too, you're right, we didn't have that example. And some of us had examples, it just wasn't a good example, right? And I
don't beat me.
Oh yes, right.
You work.
Well, I was getting beat. I'm just gonna be honest. I was getting beat. But I think I sometimes wonder how people can judge women who've been in domestic violence situations, because until you've been in it, you really don't know what you will do.
Right. That's why they judging.
Yes, haven't been in it. And I know for me, looking back now, I seen the signs, but there were other things in my in growing up that prevented me from leaving him because of the idea of what people would say now that I have a child by this man and I leave him. Because I remember sometimes growing up, whether it was on my mother's side or my father's side, in two different cultures. My mom's African-American and my dad is Puerto Rican, okay? And I remember sometimes how I would hear my aunts and uncles on either side talk about some of my cousins and aunts who had children by this man or that man. And knowing this man was not good for me, knowing it wasn't love like it should be, but wanting to try to keep that family unit together because I didn't want my child to be without her father. So I dealt with things that I shouldn't have to keep up with that facade, right? And not realizing, okay, I'll never discount him. He was a good dad. He was a good provider, but he was terrible at relationships and loving me, you know? And it took me almost 8 years to figure that out. And I thank God for when I did. But even when I figured it out and moved here and left California, I found out 3 months later, I was pregnant with our second child together, which was our son.
Michele, hold that thought. We're going to take a sponsor break and be right back.
Yeah.
Do you have a powerful story of perseverance? Have you triumphed over pain and want to share your story with the world? We're looking for inspiring guests to join us on the Prevailing Through Pain podcast. Head over to KarenSherry.me/guest. Fill out the form and let us know your story. Your voice could be the one to inspire others. Your experience can be the one to lift up someone else. Go to KarenSherry.me/guest.
And we're back. So you finally get up the courage to leave, and you find out you're pregnant with your second child.
Yes, found out I was pregnant with our second child. And first thing that goes through a young woman's mind is maybe I should give it another try. And moved here, and it all blew up. And unlike California, Texas does not play with domestic violence, and that's all I can say.
So did you all come here together?
Well, no, I left. I left after the last situation he and I had. I just was, so kind of to back up, he had family here.
Okay.
And we came here to visit. And when I tell you I fell in love with Texas, there was something about Texas that I had never seen before compared to California. And we spent a little less than a week in Dallas, Frisco, and we spent a week in Houston. I had family in Dallas area. He had family in Houston.
Okay.
And it was something about seeing our people just thriving. I had never seen that before in all my years. I think I was about 25 or 26 at this time. And it was just, oh my God. He had family members that were real estate agents, professionals, beautiful homes, thriving. We were lucky to have nice cut grass where we were from, and hearing the, we called it the ghetto bird out in Compton, where you could hear gunshots and you hear the helicopter all night long. So to come here and have a peaceful sleep, like not hearing anything, just resting. And I had made my mind up. Now that I'm older, I realize I made my mind up after we left here to go back home that I was going to leave. That was August of that year of 2002. And there was just a string of events that kept happening. And Christmas, 3 days before Christmas Day, I decided I'm getting up out of here. And I got in my car with my daughter and we drove to Texas and made it here on Christmas morning, 2002. And then I found out, like I said, 3 months later that I was pregnant with my son. So I honestly thought it was going to be over between he and I. But then when I found out I had my son, I'm like, well, maybe this would change him. It's a boy, but then it didn't. And that's when after that year, he came here to live and it didn't work out. And I ended up deciding, okay, I have to start a new chapter in my life, So it took me some time being apart from him to make me realize that it wasn't about him and that I had lost myself those 7-8 years. I wasn't the Michele that he met 8 years ago. I was weak. I was very weak. And I see now how a relationship, how a man can change us, how our wanting and need to have that relationship, that marriage, that life, that family, it can cause us to settle. And I had to get me back.
Yeah.
And I did.
Lord, that. And that's so true. I often tell people, if I had still been married to my ex-husband, it shatters me to think I wouldn't be the person I am today because I thought I needed him for everything. And it was after we divorced, I got my bachelor's degree, I got my master's degree, and then, even with the business on and on and on and on and on. And I feel like had I still, and I'm not saying this, I don't want people to break up their marriages. I'm just agreeing with Michele. Mm-hmm. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself in anyone. Be that gift that God made you to be.
Yeah.
But, I really feel like I would have continued to think that everything was my husband. I'm able to do this because of my husband.
Yeah.
But actually, I realized all that strength was in me.
Yes.
All of it was in me.
All of it.
God, that there was no stopping.
Yeah.
So, ladies, men, whoever it is, don't stop.
Don't stop.
God gave you. Keep pushing.
Yeah.
So you realize that you were, this gift all by yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I think we realize what a gift we are. Anyone that we get with, that we complement each other.
Yeah.
The gifts that God gave us.
Yes. And that's what I found in my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, and even with my marriage, it's 20 years. I always tell him 22. We have an ongoing joke because it's 20, but I always say 22. And he said, you can't say 22. We weren't together 22 years. I said, well, I'm counting when I started asking God for you.
You get that.
I said, so for me, it's 22 years, but it's 20 years. And even with my husband, we had our moments, because we were young too. But I have to admit, he taught me how to love. He he got me grounded back in the Bible. You know, my husband was he's a praying man. He comes from his family, had a church growing up. They actually still do. His Uncle Matthew runs, or is the pastor of the church in South Dallas. But there were certain things about him that I had never experienced before. And what we've been through, what we have achieved, I do it 1,000 times over again just with him. And the mere fact that he was able to come in to my world. So I was a force to reckon with. I still am, right? But I have to admit that with what I went through with my previous marriage, I know I took my current husband through some changes because I didn't know how to trust. I didn't know how to communicate. I was afraid, you know, and it took him a while to make me believe that he was real, you know. But the mere fact that he was able to come into my world and help raise my 2 children, you know, and we have our own, and then we
well, let's talk about it. You had 2 before you and your husband got married, and then you all have
we have 6 total. 6 total. So we had the 2 that I had previously, and we had trouble getting pregnant for a while, and then we had one on our own, and then shortly, I'd say when my firstborn with my husband was about 4, we acquired custody of my 2 cousins. So we took in my 3 and 4-year-old cousins. So we went from a household of 3 to 5. And it was difficult. It was difficult. But he never complained. Our home has been that home where any and everybody has lived with us at some point. You know, family, friend, you know.
Does he come from a big family?
He does not. He does not.
Well, that's very surprising.
Yes, he does not. I remember when he went to one of our first family reunions, my grandmother had 16 children. She had, at that time, 36 grandchildren and almost 40 great-grand. And he just loved it. But he always said he wanted a big family. So, and that's what exactly. They call us Michele and Jarrell plus 12. But no, yeah, you be careful what you ask for. But that told me a lot about his character too, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it because, like I said, I will admit, when we first started dating and we got married very quick, and it was some learning curves that we had to go through. You know, you come in, oh my God, he's great with the kids, and this and that, and she's this and she's that, and then you start learning each other. And I'm just grateful now that God has put us in a position where we know how to properly communicate, love each other, be okay with telling each other when we're not okay, holding yourself accountable, you know, but knowing that you don't always have to agree, but we have to respect each other,
right?
You know, and those were, they were things that I wasn't equipped with growing up. I came from a family where the person who was the loudest was the winner, right? When you scream, you holler, you fight, you got to be big and bad. And what I've learned with my husband and through all of these, you know, seasons I've acquired or have gone through is that as a woman, as an African-American woman, as a minority, sometimes we have to step aside and remember that it's okay to be vulnerable. We don't have to be strong all the time. We don't always have to be so independent. We need to be more open and letting the people we love know when we're hurting, when we need their help. Because we'll be the first to cast a stone at them when we feel like they're not meeting us.
They're not doing their part.
Yes, exactly.
But you didn't say what you needed. You're right. It's, I feel weak, or I don't need anybody. Yeah, and I agree with that. You have to know when to say when.
Yeah.
And it's okay to let someone help you when it's the when time, right?
Yeah.
Because I was bad at that. I mean, I've just been remarried 2 years after being by myself for 30 years because I don't need nobody. And I'm on a mission here and they aren't understanding where I'm trying to go. And
yes.
And I love when you said, when you asked God, you said that the other 2 years because you asked God. And that was me and my husband. When I was like, okay, God, I'm ready to share and this my husband, I almost with my husband, because he said when I met him, he was like, what, do you think you'll ever get remarried? And I said, well, I think at some point, you know, who wants to go all by themselves? He said, you mean who want to die by themselves? Because y'all ain't know. No, he's not for me. He can just come. Oh, But, okay.
But I mean, in all honesty, yeah, you're right. I mean, I think all of us have that person. They're out there somewhere. I'm grateful to God for my Jarrell. I am. I'm grateful to God.
You tell, because every time you say his name, you got this big old smile.
I love my husband. I'm serious because...
Oh, I know you do. I look at all your posts and
man, when I tell you, like I said, we're not perfect, but we're perfect for each other, and I just, when we sit up some nights and we think about where we started and where we are now, I remember when we first got my two cousins, there were nights where me and my husband had to decide, them or us, it's always going to be them, who's going to eat? How are we going to get this? Cars repossessed, lights turned off. You'd be surprised how the foster care system works. They're supposed to be there to help the kids and the families and the kinship families that come in, but it's not always that way. And, but we made it through it. And with every year, a door would open somewhere, so I'm just grateful to God for it. I really,
and I believe God blesses us to be a blessing. Mm-hmm. You made that sacrifice and that's, I believe, why you're where you are today, because God, He honors what you did for someone else.
My dad said that all the time.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer of that. So you went from trying to figure out who was gonna eat this, that, and the other. So how did you decide to step out and do your business?
Okay, so I had been nursing for a while, the school nursing clinic, was at Children's Medical Center for a short while, and started working home health and hospice, making very good money. Mm-hmm. And COVID hit. And Father's Day that year, I remember me and my husband had this long discussion because I was really adamant I wanted to go to Louisiana or New York to help with everything that was going on with COVID, but we were afraid that I'd get sick. It's better you stay home, So I was seeing these patients, and one of my patients ended up testing positive, and they let us all know, but this is in the very beginning. So there really wasn't no true protocols. Nobody knew what to do. We weren't out there wearing masks because their masks weren't even available. N95 masks, you can get a dime a dozen like now. You were lucky, and if you found one, you had to spend $100, $200 for one mask that's generally, $6? But I remember they told us that the young lady, one of our patients, had tested positive, and they required all of us to go get tested. I felt like it was too early. We just found out today it should be a waiting period. We all got tested. We all came back negative. That was a Monday or Tuesday that week. And we got our results about that Thursday, Friday, something like that. I went out on Father's Day morning to cover one of the nurses, came back home, and I would go through a whole entire process when I came home. I would go through the garage, remove my uniform, throw it inside the wash, run across through the house in my bra and underwear, because I didn't want nobody to get sick. Go in there, jump in the shower, you know how it went. And went home, finally got a chance to kind of just lie down, and struck a fever out of nowhere. I was rushed. My husband took me over to Methodist Mansfield, and they confirmed I was positive. They admitted me. I was in there about a week or so, and almost 2 weeks now that I think about it, and turned around, got discharged, still positive, failed my 2-minute walk. That's where they check your breathing. When I tell you that was the worst 2 weeks of my life, because when it was in there, my pulse wouldn't go over 42. You could not tell me I wasn't about to die. And they released me, told me I still had to self-quarantine at home. Didn't make 24 hours. Called my doctor when I first got home because I didn't understand why I was still home. They had placed me on home health with oxygen. Ended up back in the ER the next day because I started having this excruciating chest pain. Went back in, and they said they didn't understand why I had been discharged, because certain lab levels I had the day before was an indication that something was going wrong. was in that hospital over a month or so. And I went through so many changes in there. One minute I was mad at God. Next minute I was like praying. I'm scared. Family can't visit you. I didn't have an iPhone, so I was depending on Facebook Messenger video to try to speak to my children. At this point, forgot to add, my dad had been diagnosed with leukemia 15 years prior to this. So now he has no more drug addiction, and I'm battling, trying to keep him healthy in my home. And
you said in your home? So,
in my home, yeah.
So your dad in the plus 12.
Yes. So my dad actually ended up moving in with us about 5 years before I got custody of my two cousins. And total, my dad lived with me about 23 years.
Wow.
Up until his untimely death last year. And I remember I wanted to go home and couldn't, and afraid that if I went home, I might get my dad sick. He's immune compromised, might get my children sick. I have one child has a heart condition. My son, John, very asthmatic. There were so many different things. And I was in there just going through changes. And I remember just wondering what's my life going to look like. And I prayed to God, if you get me home, if you heal me, I'm going to do something different. I promise you. I promise you. And I started thinking about things because my husband had said to me one day when I was crying, because I kept saying, why me? I don't understand. I'm a good mother. I'm a good wife. You know how you go through all those changes. He said, why not? Look what they did to Jesus.
Yep.
And I had to sit there for a minute in that. And he was right. But luckily enough, God showed me grace and he got me out of there. And I did just that. And that's how Absolute Allied Health Academy came about. I started thinking like, wait a minute, all of the trials and tribulations I went through growing up in Compton, California, and not having access to certain things, or better yet, what I've learned in this venture with my business, not so much of not having access now, the fact that a lot of people in our community have no clue that certain resources even exist.
Right.
We all know about the food pantry, right? We all know where to go to get on the Section 8 wait list. We all know where to go get the things that are like instantaneous gratification that are these resources, but no one tells us about the things that can help us in the long haul, the longevity, about survival, career, education, trades, training. And once I got home, I went from an LVN and I finished RN school, opened up a vaccine clinic free for children, opened up a COVID screening clinic. My CPR company was kind of like my little side thing, made that full time, became a training center for American Heart and Red Cross, EMF Safety, ASHI, and opened up my own CLIA lab. And I did all those things because my goal was to open up a school. And what I kept running into was being a new school, being a small school, me being the owner. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't give you access just because.
Right.
So I had to create my own table.
Yep.
So if I can't...
Did you hear that? She created her own table.
Yes, I created my own table, because I realized that everybody's not going to give you access. And I also realized that sometimes the people that are doing the things that you want to get into don't want to share.
Don't want to share.
Everybody has this idea that you're going to take something from them. It's enough out here for everybody. And it's sad that people think that way. I have a motto, and I know we've talked about this before, where I'm a sharer. I don't mind helping you open up exactly what I have right now, because what God has for me, he has for me. If you decide to move across the street in that vacant building doing the same thing that I'm doing, I'm not missing out on anything, because they're going to come to me for what I do. They're going to come to you for what you do. And if we work and network together, how great our people would be, how great our community would be. But we're so afraid. We're so afraid of somebody else's race that sometimes we don't even realize, because you are blocking someone else's race, that's why they're going to bypass you every time. You won't even get the glory that you expect or want or need, because you're so busy trying to stop someone else from achieving it.
Yeah. No, that's oh, girl. Because I lived it, as a business owner. Thank God, 20 years in business, this year, 20 years of thriving. So thank God for that, but Lord have mercy. And, they're grabbing the barrel of that. And like you said, somebody afraid that you were going to be able to do something that they were doing. And I do believe that people used to say, why are you teaching this person? Why are you sharing with this person? Because somebody shared with me, somebody taught me, well, aren't you afraid they're going to take? No, you can't take anything that God has.
You cannot. You cannot. Nothing at all.
COVID, where many businesses were closing, we were surviving. We were still
thriving. Telling you, and people don't realize that's another thing how I know there is a God. Mm-hmm. And he takes care of his children. Because I promise you, I know exactly what you mean with that. And that's one of the things that I truly, truly, truly appreciate. And I'm so grateful for his favor. Because the same thing for us. We were worried about what was going to happen to COVID. Nobody was trying to learn CPR. Nobody, and even till this day, I know it was nothing but God, but we were still able to pay our bills. We were still able to pay our rent. We were still able to take in customers. We didn't have to shut down. Many of us didn't, So, yes, that's all through God's grace.
Okay. So, would you look in this camera and tell, the young Michele,
yes,
that's sitting out there trying to figure out, the adult Michele that is not where you are, that's saying, but how? What do you have to say to them? And then I want you to tell us about your school and how we can find you.
I would say the battle's not yours. And sometimes we get so caught up in waiting for affirmation from everyone else that we lose sight of what we need to do within. I would say to the young women and men out there, understand it's a season. I want you to stay encouraged, and the season is meant to make you stronger. Don't give up on your goals. Don't feel like you have to choose between your children or what's going on now with your future. And don't get so caught up in giving up. I think sometimes we get so caught up in, there are things in life we have no control over. Don't allow them to affect the things that we do. And that's one of the biggest hardships and situations that I think we as a people end up fumbling opportunities. So whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you want to try and achieve, try it and be okay with failure. Sometimes we don't get it the first time, because I'm a firm believer. Everything that I have, everything that I've achieved, everything that I'm doing, I know many, many years ago, the young Michele wanted. But if the young Michele would have had access to it or had that opportunity, I would not have done well. I would have lost it all. And sometimes you're not going to get what you want now. And it's because you're not ready, and you have to be okay with not being ready. But God is going to put you in a position where when you're ready, you will be able to not only have access to it, you will be able to maintain it. So don't come down on yourself so hard. I also want to point out and make a point to, especially our younger generation, our 26, 27 and under. Stop allowing social media to feel like you've been left behind. I have 6 children, ages 9, 14, 15, 16, 21, and 25. And one of the biggest struggles that I've noticed in you guys' generation is you want instantaneous gratification, and it doesn't happen that way. But remember, it's not about how someone else did it. Don't worry about what your family, your friends, or the individuals and people you knew from high school or college are doing. It's your race. Set a plan for you. Make sure you're making informed decisions on the things that you're selecting. Make sure you're happy with what you're selecting. And by all means, don't select the career because of the money. Select it because you love it. Otherwise, you're going to be starting all over again. We're in a world and a time where we don't have access to as much as we used to think we could. It's going to be hard with education soon. It's going to be hard, getting access to the financial aid and the student loans and so forth. Find your niche. But entrepreneurship is the way to go. Build your own brand. Create your own table. Don't expect anyone to bring you along their journey, and be careful of who you bring along yours. Everybody doesn't get to sit at your table. And if they're not in the valley breaking chains with you, they don't get to eat at your table when you win. And that's what I would get.
So how can our viewers find you?
Okay, you can find us. We're in Duncanville, Texas. We're Absolute Allied Health Academy. We're at 402 West Wheatland Road, Suite 180. We provide accelerated medical assistant, accelerated nurse assistant with patient care technician and phlebotomy technician. Our accelerated medical assistant program will allow you to become a medical assistant, a phlebotomy technician, and an EKG technician in as little as 12 weeks. We're hybrid, so you can gain access to this education online and in person. And in September, we'll have pharmacy tech, dental assistant, performance optimization coach, and we're working on LVN.
Thank you. Michele dropped a lot of nuggets today, so I hope you had your pen and pencil ready, your pen and paper ready. And if you didn't, that's okay. You can rewind and write it down. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on Prevailing Through Pain.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Cherry Brown, and if you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.